Hello and welcome back to the Yoga Life channel. Thanks for tuning in with us again. Today I want to have a bit of a chat with you about the expectations you are putting on yourself and the kind of pressure that you are creating in doing so. We will share a little bit of a look at what happens behind the scenes for you in your own mind, in your own reality, and then look at a bunch of strategies that you can use to overcome those pressure items in your life. The interesting thing that I come across a lot when I look at my clients is that the more high-functioning, successful, beautiful, awesome people I talk to, the more pressure I see. It's funny that the more high-functioning people are, the more are the pressures and the expectations they have for themselves. And the problem is when you live with a lot of shoulds, with a lot of stress around who you should be, what you should be doing, or the things you should have achieved, that can really be killing the joy in your life and be a recipe for unhappiness. It's easy to then go either way and either give up in defeat because you feel like with all these mounting expectations you can't keep up anyway, or you keep trying to comply, really make an effort, go, and then eventually burn out because you just can't take it anymore. Another behavior I've observed actually in myself a few times is that when I feel I can't fully live up to my own expectations and then somebody comes along and points out a flaw or some way where I'm not showing up as best I could, that I can sometimes step into being defensive. And you might have noticed that in yourself as well. So somebody points out a weakness and I will have all the excuses, all the explanations, or the reasons why I'm doing this, when actually what am I really defending? What am I really trying to say here? I might as well just get on with it and maybe look at how I can change. But my automatic thing might be being defensive. These behaviors, the trying to live up to too high expectations, burning out because we can't keep up, or being defensive, are all signs that in some areas of our lives, not in general, but in some areas of our lives, we are still being in an either childlike or slightly adolescent stage. And we haven't yet fully matured in being able to discern what is or isn't right for us. And we're still trying to live up to somebody else's expectations, and therefore either resentful for having to do so or compliant but not really fully happy. So what is it that we are rebelling against? What is it that we are complying with? And how can we overcome this? Basically, the question is, how can we outgrow our childhood, our adolescent conditioning? So let's have a look at the steps that we can take to grow up for good and step into a more mature way of acting and dealing. Step number one is you need to gain awareness. Self-observation is the key. It's always easy to see when something shows up that we are stressed, but to actually trace it back to where this behavior started, where it came from, is a whole different ballpark game. And usually it is our family of origin where we learn our most important behaviors. And before I continue on here, I want to give you a bit of a disclaimer. This is not about blaming your parents, because they probably, unless they were abusive people, they probably did the best they could with what they knew at the time. And parenting styles and behaviors have changed so much, even just in the last 50 years or in the last century, that pointing the finger and blaming them by nowadays standards might not really be serving anyone. And if you're true to yourself, if you already are a parent, you might also find that you are also not quite as perfect as you wish you were. I can certainly say about myself, with my teenager in the house, that I've made a whole bunch of mistakes over the years, and probably one day he'll come back to me and point them out bit by bit. Anyway, so this is not about blaming parents, this is just about recognizing where behaviors have started and then finding better ways of doing them, while acknowledging that our parents were probably making a good effort. So we were talking about awareness. A really interesting question that you can ask yourself is, who of your parents, and this can, by the way, include step-parents, who are the people, or who is the person who you had to make the biggest effort to gain their love, their recognition, their support? There's usually in a family dynamic one parent that's the easy one, where love is available unconditionally and you are supported. And basically, you have a get out of jail for free card. They will always be loving and supportive. Then there's often the other parent that will require you to make more of an effort, where you feel you have to, for example, be a straight A student, or be really good at a sport, perform really well on stage with your violin or saxophone or piano. Maybe you have to be the pretty girl. Maybe you have to be the sweet person that is always compliant and always kind of quietly nods away, or you have to be the really rough and tumble kid in order to compete with your siblings. So who is the parent who you had to live up to, and what were the rules, what were the expectations that you had to meet in order to earn their love, in order to earn their support and recognition? In looking at this and probably sitting down with a journal and writing out a few notes, it is quite likely that you will recognize that some of the behaviors that you are displaying today with your boss, your spouse, your friends, or your own children might still be mimicking the behaviors that you had with that parent that weren't serving you back then, and that are certainly not serving you right now. So step number 2 then is to decide to drop those old behaviors, to make a real conscious decision to not keep going on in the same way over and over again. Before you do that though, one thing you need to look at is what we call in coaching our secondary gain. So what is it that you are getting out of the old behavior? So for example, if you were working really hard, if you were that A grade student and you were always kind of on top marks, studying a lot, working a lot, always doing more and not allowing yourself to get a lot of rest, what is it that you feel you are getting out of this right now? What were you getting out of it back then? Probably the certainty that you will be loved, the certainty that you will be supported, and the recognition, the validation from your parent. So then the question becomes, if validation was what you were getting, how can you now stop looking for validation from others, probably from your boss, from your partner, and bring validation back to yourself? How can you learn to validate yourself, and for that to become an internal programming and an internal resource that you have, rather than you needing to rely on others to give that to you? So step number 2, look for the secondary gain, and if it's outside of you and outside of your own control, bring it back to yourself and make a conscious effort to find a better, more mature way of meeting that need. Number 3 is to decide on a now better behavior, on a better behavioral pattern that you could implement. So if your old thing is, for example, to work yourself to exhaustion because you are trying to get validation from a boss, from a spouse, from your parent, what would be a better way of doing this right now? If you already were in that regard the conscious, mature adult, and you hadn't grown up with all these warped beliefs, how could you do this in a really nice, healthy, balanced way that will still obviously meet the requirements of your job, of your life, but without that pressure and stress on you? If you find it difficult to imagine what it could look like for you or what it could feel like, look at the people around you who haven't grown up in the same kind of scenario and who have an easy and relaxed relationship with what it is that you are struggling with, and model excellence from them. How are they doing it? For example, how do these people know that they have worked enough and it is now time to rest and to not keep going, if this is one of the things that you are struggling with? If you have to always be pretty and perfect and have to have the perfect body image, how does someone who doesn't have this issue and is quite happy and comfortable in their own skin, how do they know that they are enough? How do they know to which degree they will style, they will change, they will perfect themselves, and when to just let it go and be quite happy when they look in the mirror? So model excellence from others or find a new way in your own mind. The aim that you have here is to really open and free and increase the choice that you have, so that you can, whatever you give freely because you want to, not because you feel you have to or you should or you need to, or something bad is going to happen if you don't. So increase choice, increase freedom. That's the aim. The next step in our strategy is to then go and implement what we have decided. So basically take that new belief, take that new behavioral pattern and try it out. Try it out on yourself, try it out with other people, and then cut yourself some slack if you are doing it and you are failing. Because right now we are still playing with the new belief. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you definitely don't have to get it right the first time around. So try it out, see what happens, see how you like it. If it flies, brilliant, keep doing it. And if it doesn't, keep tweaking and changing and optimizing as you go. There's no expectations of you and no pressure in getting it right immediately. Just keep correcting. And last thing, when you fall over and you make a mistake and you may potentially revert back to your old behavior for a while, be kind to yourself. So what? That happens. It happens to the best of us. So if you notice yourself slipping back into old behaviors, into old patterns, just stop, observe, see what's going on, what your triggers have been, and then make a conscious choice to course correct and go back to what it is that you know that works much better for you. Cut yourself some slack. There's a coaching principle that is called there is no failure, only feedback. It's one of the best principles because that means that every time something goes wrong, there is a learning opportunity for you. There's some way of you stepping up and becoming more just by learning, by observing, and by then making a conscious new choice of doing something different. No failure, only feedback. So I trust this has been helpful. If you're one of the people who tend to put too much pressure on yourself and have super high expectations, give it a go, try it out, and maybe let us know in the comments how you're going, or if you have found other strategies, additional strategies that are working for you, please let us know and share with our community. As always, if you have liked our content, you know where to subscribe to our channel, ring the bell button if you want to hear more, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.